pedas or sedikit pedas. No, Papa, it's not going to be a little bit spicy or no spice. That food sangat pedas lah.
Pedas gila.
It's going to...
Assalamualaikum semuanya. Selamat kembali ke channel ini. Pada kalian semua sentiasa bantu support dukung us jika channel ini jutaan. Terima kasih ucapkan lagi kepada kalian yang baru yang masih belum gabung. Ayo bantu dengan tekan butang subscribe, kerana subscribe itu kan gratis aja, geng. Okey lah, seperti biasanya sebelum us mulai, us ingin mendoakan buat sesiapa saja yang menonton video us kali ini agar dikurniakan limpahan rezeki luar biasa yang tak akan pernah putus-putusnya, diberikan kekuatan dan kesabaran dalam menghadapi apa juga ujian yang dihadapan, dipermudahkan urusan kehidupan, urusan pekerjaan, urusan harian, dan buat saudara-saudara kita di Palestina, semoga Allah menggantikan mereka apa yang mereka hilang itu dengan sesuatu yang jauh lebih baik, dan semoga Allah memberikan kemenangan kepada mereka, insya-Allah. Amin amin ya rabbal alamin. Okeylah, hari ini us nak react satu lagi video daripada channel Alana Dunsmore. Jangan lupa untuk kalian bantu juga subscribe channel ini, tanda dukungan kita. Okey, kali ini kita akan melihat perkongsiannya, katanya 10 cara Indonesia membingungkan WNA. Apa yang membingungkan itu ya? Jom atau ayo kita cari tahu. Jom ikut us react. Yuk. Oke, udah siap semuanya? Yuk, kita mulai. Bismillah.
Di video ini, aku bakal ngomong tentang 10 reasons Indonesia confuses foreigners. Indonesia ada banyak street food. Enak lah. No, Bapa, it's not gonna be a little bit spicy. Apa? Number 1, nasi campur. Aku sangat suka makan nasi campur, tapi bule get very confused about nasi campur because they don't know what anything is. If they go to local warung and want to makan nasi campur, they don't know what anything says. There's no English signs. Often, not many people can speak English and explain it to them, so they're looking at everything like, what on earth is going on? And they don't get any help from anyone, and they're just really confused. So oftentimes, they just go somewhere where they can have an English menu. But if they had a little bit of help, a little bit of guidance, guys, message me about anything to do with nasi campur, boleh ya, no problem.
Nasi campur katanya dia bengong banget, mau ya kenapa menunya nggak ada, lauknya banyak tapi nggak ada menunya, jadi mereka itu nggak tahu mau makan apa. Banyak kan lauk di nasi campur, waduh, bengong dia.
For the average foreigner, it just confuses them. Personally, aku sangat suka makan nasi campur. Setiap hari aku suka makan nasi campur. Number 2, the money. The money really confuses foreigners because your money is so big, like ₦1,000,000. To be a millionaire in Indonesia is 60 pounds. 60 pounds in the UK will not get you very far. Obviously in Indonesia, like ₦1,000,000 is going to get you loads. But when foreigners come, and maybe if they're on holiday, if they're going to Jakarta, Bali, when they exchange their money, maybe they're going to have like a few £100s for a couple of weeks. When they exchange that into rupiah, they become millionaires and they just get so confused. They're like, wait, what? How is this money real? They feel like it's monopoly money. Suddenly, the bills are so much bigger than what they're used to if they're coming from Europe, America, wherever they're coming from, Asia. Different money is very interesting to see like how much is equivalent to somewhere else. Number 3, the spice level. When uncle tells you, tak pedas or sedikit pedas, no, Papa, it's not going to be a little bit spicy or no spice. That food sangat pedas lah.
Pedas gila.
It's going to be so crazy spicy that you're not going to be able to handle it. And this confuses foreigners. If you tell them it's a little bit spicy or no spice and suddenly it's really spicy, they get confused. They're like, but you said no spice. Honestly, guys, if someone tells me no spice, I expect 0% spice. I expect negative spice in that food. So when it becomes spicy in my mouth and there's a party going on in my mouth, I get a little bit confused. Tapi now saya belajar that sedikit pedas in Indonesian to foreigner is a lot of spice. Tak pedas, still gonna be a little bit of spice. Alright, you get it, guys? So now foreigners, you can understand the spice level di Indonesia. Number 4, street food. Street food can confuse foreigners because Indonesia ada banyak street food lah. There's so much street food on offer that foreigners just get overwhelmed, but they also get confused because if there's no signs in English, they look at like gado-gado and they're like, what on earth is gado-gado? They look at pisang goreng and they think, what is pisang goreng? They should really just Google it, right? Or you guys can watch my videos. But if it's the first time in Indonesia, I think it can be a little bit overwhelming and there's all these different stalls. But if you're a foreigner coming to Indonesia, my advice to you is just go for it. Just try everything. Obviously, if you diet,
Itu bagi us adalah satu tips yang sangat bagus. Kalau kalian ke Indonesia, coba aja. Ya, kalau yang muslim itu yang halal itu pasti ya kan. Kalau street food suka pisang goreng gitu, goreng pisang, aduh enak kan.
True requirements, maybe learn in bahasa Indonesia how to say like no peanuts, which I think is tidak kacang. Tidak kacang di sini, something like that. Overall, guys, you got to push yourself out there. You got to try all the Indonesian street food because there's so much on offer and enak lah. It's so delicious. Number 5, the language. Of course, the language confuses foreigners. Even for me, saya boleh bercakap di bahasa Melayu, tapi di Indonesia, saya tidak bercakap di bahasa Indonesia. It's very difficult for me to speak Indonesian.
Kenapa?
I learned bahasa Melayu first, so it's much easier for me to speak Malaysian. But when I come to Indonesia, I have to start switching words. Saya to aku, selamat tengah hari to selamat siang. So many things. Cuba to coba. There's so many subtle differences in the Indonesian language, and more so when I do TikTok live or YouTube live, when people type in Malay, I can understand, but when you type in Indonesian, and on top of that you use like text talk Indonesian where the words are like so short, I look at it and I'm like, what on earth does that say? Aku mau belajar lagi ya. Like I will hopefully inshallah learn more, okay? Give me some time. Aku coba lah, okay? Number 6.
Aku coba lah, okay?
Spray gun in the bathroom. So I think most foreigners, when they come to Indonesia, when they see the spray gun, they think, oh, this is just for like cleaning the toilet, cleaning the bathroom, what a great idea. Little do they know, it's actually for cleaning themselves. Like in the UK and Europe, we just don't have this. I think in France they have like a bidet, and I think, no, not even I think, I know Indonesians, when they find out that Europeans don't use this, they're like, girl, what? Apa? Get using it, guys. Number 7. I feel like this one, moving on from the last one's quite funny. Using your hands to eat food. This is definitely something that confuses foreigners because they're used to eating with a fork and a knife, and not only are they trying to use a fork and a spoon, now you're adding hands into the mixture and they just look really awkward. And if you're like me, who's left-handed but you have to use your right hand, you just look like a child who's learning to eat food for the first time in their lives. But they can learn, okay? Give foreigners a chance. They can learn. They can use their hand. It is very confusing for us that we are taught that it's bad manners to use your hand. I know.
Is it? Betul. Bagi mereka itu kalau di Inggris itu makan pakai tangan itu kayaknya nggak boleh ya, kayak nggak ada adabnya gitu. Tapi kita kan pakai tangan, makanya seru.
Oh, can you believe that? We're told like, don't play with your food, don't eat your food with your hand, eat it with a knife and fork. But when we come to Indonesia, we're like, oh, okay, let's try use our hand, because that is more polite. That is how you should be eating food. It does confuse us, but we do try. Number 8, leading on to this, you're never given a knife. You're given a fork and a spoon, which is hard enough to try and understand because we're used to really using a knife. If we're having like meat, we put the fork in the meat and then cut it like this. Suddenly, we either have to use our hand, like I mentioned, or try and like flick the meat off with the spoon. And it makes sense because a lot of your meals in Indonesia, like makanan Indonesia, ada nasi, like it has a lot of rice, right? So that's why you use the fork, because then you can scoop up the rice. And it does make sense. But when it comes to the meat, we're like, how do we eat this without a knife? We do get a little bit confused here, but again, as I mentioned, we try. Number 9, when you're given hot water instead of cold water when you ask for water in a restaurant. So if you're asking just for like maybe a glass of water rather than like a bottle of water, and they give you like hot water, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, we always would expect like cold water, like even with ice cubes, or what we could also get is room temperature maybe in Europe, but we don't really like that. We much prefer cold water. But here, if you just ask for normal water, perhaps they'll bring you hot water, which is a little bit confusing for us. We're like, oh, okay, do we need a tea bag? Are we gonna have some tea? Like, no, girl, you're just gonna drink your hot water. Enjoy. And I'm like, oh, no lemon? Like, maybe we'd have hot water with lemon, but just hot water. Boleh, okay.
Boleh lah.
Rice cookers. I know what you're thinking, but rice cookers actually really confuse us foreigners. We just don't really have them. Like, I certainly don't have a rice cooker at home. I don't know many Europeans that actually have a rice cooker. We're used to actually cooking rice, wait for it, on the stove. I know, we cook rice on the stove with a pan. And even worse, my mom, I'm sorry to out you, mom, but ibu saya masak nasi di Microwave. My mum literally cooks rice in the microwave. I know what you're thinking, guys. I know what you're thinking. I know what I'm thinking. But it's true. My mum genuinely sometimes uses the microwave. We don't have a rice cooker, and I just don't know a lot of Europeans who do have a rice cooker. If you like this video, don't forget to watch this video here when I talk about 10 weird habits I've adopted living in Indonesia.
Nah, itu tadi katanya perkongsian dari Alana tentang 10 perkara yang pasti membengongkan para bule ataupun WNA yang datang ke Indonesia. Katanya banyak sekali, 10 ya. Dan paling menariknya pasti currency ataupun nilai mata uang itu pasti membengongkan mereka kan, karena dengan 60 pound aja mereka udah menjadi milioner di Indonesia. Karena kita tahu kalau 1 juta rupiah itu kalau dibanding dengan pound ataupun US dollar pasti akan sedikit jumlahnya berbanding dengan ditukarkan dengan currency maksudnya di Indonesia rupiah kan. Dan pasti untuk membeli itu pastinya kayaknya mereka itu kayak bengong karena banyak sekali kosongnya itu. Jadi mereka agak bengong di situ, tapi nggak apa-apa, yang penting mereka itu kalau belajar sekejap aja atau sebentar aja udah ngerti gitu kan, bagaimana currency-nya, bagaimana mata uangnya, itu mudah sekali. Dan dikongsikan juga cara makan, cara kita pakai tangan, cara kita makan pedas gimana, cara makan, bagaimana kesukaran mereka ini para bule menyatakan karena nggak ada menu khususnya di warung-warung, di kedai-kedai ataupun kita panggil di warung-warung nasi campur sebagainya, nggak ada menu-menunya, ayam rendang atau apa kayak. Jadi mereka tuh nggak tahu kayak apa yang harus dipilih gitu kan. Itu antara yang dikongsikan oleh Alana, dan juga bahasa itu sudah pastinya ada agak sukar sedikit. Dan banyak dekat sini sangat respect kepada Alana karena dia itu mau belajar tentang budaya dan bagaimana perbedaan di Indonesia untuk diaplikasikan dengan kehidupan sehariannya di Indonesia, dan coba mengadaptasi budaya Indonesia itu dengan sangat baik. Makan pakai tangan gitu kan, mencoba sesuatu yang lain yang tidak pernah dicobanya, pasti memberikan pengalaman luar biasa buat dia. Tahniah buat Alana, terus mencoba, insya Allah pasti bakal jatuh cinta pastinya dengan masyarakat dan budaya di Indonesia. Oke lah, sampai di sini dulu video reaction langsung untuk kali ini. Pada kalian telah nonton bareng dengan sampai habis video ini, ciptaan terima kasih ucapkan. Oke, jumpa lagi insya Allah di lain video. Assalamualaikum semua, jaga diri, dadah.